To our legal panel, attorneys Jeremy Rosenthal and Mark Sedlander. Let's talk, Jeremy, you're up first. The pace of this trial, 1 week of testimony, and it's now in the jury's hands. What does that tell you?
Well, it's quicker certainly than the Donald Trump trial. That was a white collar case. That's a paper case. This one, the prosecution, I think, was very thorough, and it sounds like to some degree maybe to a fault. Sometimes you can make a case actually closer than it needs to be, but the prosecution did their best to prove 3 ways till Sunday that Hunter Biden had a drug problem, that the drug problem was contemporaneous with his filling out of the application. They were, again, called several witnesses, the family members, love interests, listening to his memoirs. They were pretty thorough, but it's just not going to be the same length, say, as a white-collar case. This is about, I think, the pace that most folks would expect.
Yeah, certainly so. Mark, up until today, we did not know if Hunter Biden would be taking the stand in his own defense. He decided not to. What do you make of that call?
I wouldn't read into it too much, Carolyn. For the most part, people who are accused of crimes do not take the stand in their own defense at their trial. Of course, the Fifth Amendment protects them from having that decision being held against them, and the judge instructed, or will instruct, or I should say has instructed the jury about that they may not hold that against Mr. Biden, that he chose to assert his Fifth Amendment right to remain silent. So I would not read into that too much. It's common, and the jury has been instructed not to consider it.
You know, some legal experts have said that the worst thing that you want is for a jury to go into that deliberation room with questions, and perhaps putting Hunter Biden on the stand would have answered some of the questions. Certainly there's risks, right, with putting him on the stand. Is that the kind of strategy rather that you would have taken, Mark?
Well, it's actually up to my clients when they decide whether or not to testify. Some people in certain cases feel very strongly that they want to tell their side of the story. And as you mentioned, there's, of course, strategy behind that decision. But in the end, Mr. Biden is represented by extremely competent counsel. I'm sure they had that discussion, and in the end, Mr. Biden made the decision that was best for him.
Jeremy, the prosecution and its closing arguments said today, and you even alluded to that, they said that it's proven its case beyond a reasonable doubt, quote, 7 ways to Sunday. What is your assessment?
I think they got there. One concern that I have if I'm prosecuting this case, you can turn somebody like Hunter Biden into a victim. You've got a guy who is owned, if for all intents and purposes, his addiction. He's been very public about it. He's been very vulnerable about it. You've got his family members in the front row, whether you love them or you hate them. If you flex on them too much, you can turn that guy into the victim. So what they had to do in this instance, and I think they did, is you've got to make the weapon dangerous here. And you've got to show the jury this is why this is a crime. It's a crime because, and talking to your juror who may be an ardent supporter of the Second Amendment, to say, look, gun ownership is for responsible owners. It's for people who want to defend themselves. It's not for somebody who wants to go make a crack deal. It's not for somebody who is addicted to drugs, and this is why. So even though you've proven the case, you still need a little bit of what we call jury putty to bring it home. And I think you saw the prosecutor do that. But again, you can make these things closer than they actually are by just keeping on killing them to death and by just going on and on and on. So we'll see what the jury does.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see for sure. Mark, the defense basically, they tried to maintain that Hunter Biden was sober when he bought the gun. They're saying it's important. They called the gun application into question, saying maybe perhaps the gun application form should be different. What did the defense do right in all this?
Well, importantly, it's the prosecution's burden to prove that Mr. Biden's statement was knowingly false when he made it. So the defense does not have to prove that he was sober. The prosecution just has to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Mr. Biden knew that he was using at the time, or that he was addicted to controlled substances. So those are the issues that I think may have been flipped in terms of your question. The the prosecution is the one that has to prove that Mr. Biden knew that he was using. It's not the defense's burden to show that he wasn't using. And I think there is some wiggle room, honestly, in the question and the form. It says, it asks if you are a user of controlled substances or addicted to controlled substances. And although I think this probably could go either way, I could see the jury deciding that it's just a common sense case. He knew he was using around that time, or that he was addicted. But at the same time, the question is not 100% clear. It just asks if the person is a user or addicted. I think that there may be some issue as to whether or not the prosecution can prove that Mr. Biden knew that he was using at the time he filled out that form, or whether or not Mr. Biden considered himself an addict. So I actually do think there is some wiggle room, and there may be some issues for the jury to discuss.
So you just heard me asking Mark what the defense did right. Jeremy, I'll ask you, in your assessment, what did they do wrong?
If they get a not guilty verdict, then the answer is very little. I mean, in a case like this, this is like a football game where sometimes the score is 48-7. You're playing with the house's money. On a case like this, there are just some instances where when you're defending a case, it's like a movie where you're being chased by a monster. You can knock over all the fruit stands, all the shopping carts, to get and then slow the monster down. But at the end of the movie, you're going to get eaten in the back alley, right? I think that's probably how this ends. As far as mistakes go, I mean, they put Naomi Biden on the stand. Mm-hmm. I think that was fine. She's a very emotional witness. Scored a lot of points there. She got cross-examined. No witness is going to be perfect. He's sending texts to her apologizing about his whereabouts. That was something I think certainly that got turned around here into, well, that's kind of how drug addicts are. So there's no such thing as a perfect defense when you're trying to throw out there witnesses like that. But like I said, the defense in this case certainly had their jobs cut out for them.
The jury deliberated for an hour today. We know they'll be back at it tomorrow morning. And there are 3 charges that they're going to be deciding, each one a felony. Hunter Biden could be found guilty on all, guilty on none, or maybe a combination of the 2. You are both experts, attorneys with a lot of experience. Given that, what do you predict the verdict will be? And I'll start with you, Mark.
I'll predict a split verdict. Juries, I have a lot of faith in the jury system for all of its flaws and our system's flaws. 12 jurors have to agree unanimously on each count. Unfortunately, though, or fortunately, however you end up looking at it, sometimes they make compromises. So there are 2 buckets of charges that you, I think, alluded to at the beginning of the segment. 2 that have to do with the alleged knowingly made false statement on the form, and then the 3rd, possessing a firearm during the time period in question. I think there's enough wiggle room in terms of whether or not the statement was knowingly made that the jury could find not guilty on those 2 counts, and then finds Mr. Biden guilty of possessing the firearm during, I think, the 11 days in question, because I think it's probably easier to show for the prosecution that he was using controlled substances at the time, or that he knew he was an addict during those 11 days, rather than just at the time he filled out the form. So I'll go with split verdict.
And Jeremy, we've got like 20 seconds left, so I'll let you get your prediction in.
I think they're going to get him on all 3. I think they're going to be 3 guilty verdicts, and I think we'll see it sometime tomorrow morning. It won't take long. But Mark's right. Jurors love to split the baby. They love to let everybody walk home a winner, but 1 guilty verdict here in Hunter Biden is a big loser. But jurors may do that. It'll never surprise me anything a jury does, ever.
Attorneys Jeremy Rosenthal and Mark Sadlander, thank you both for your time.